This pulls the curtain back on behavior that many people already question. H.G. Tudor lays out a harsh view of Prince Harry and his wife, framing them as deeply flawed and out of touch with reality. He paints this one's wife as someone who thrives on quiet digs and passive-aggressive moves, pushing a self-centered image without much substance to back it up. In his take, the issue isn't just personality, it's a pattern of self-interest that leaves a bad taste for anyone watching closely. Prince Harry is described as going along for the ride, losing whatever positive traits he once showed before this relationship took over. H.G. Tudor frames him as someone heavily influenced, suggesting that his judgment and behavior have shifted under constant pressure and encouragement from his partner. The idea here is that these traits didn't appear overnight, but they've clearly been amplified, shaped, and pushed into the spotlight over time. Because of all this, the pair are seen by critics as increasingly off-putting, with public patience wearing thin fast. H.G. Tudor points to recent headlines as proof, reminding people that this one's wife and Prince Harry showed up at Kris Jenner's 70th birthday party on November the 8th, a move that raised eyebrows and added more chatter to an already loud controversy. A lot of people started whispering that they weren't even on the real guest list and that they had already been at another event earlier that night. The rumor mill says they somehow slid their way into the birthday party, and once pictures of Harry and this one's wife popped up on Kim Kardashian and Kris Jenner's Instagram pages, the internet went wild. Then, just as fast, those photos vanished, which only cranked the speculation up another level. One image especially grabbed attention, showing Harry looking completely zoned out while standing close to Kris Jenner, clearly caught off guard and looking messy. Critics jumped on it, saying he looked out of control and totally unaware of how bad it came across, which obviously wouldn't sit well with this one's wife. The moment became instant meme material and fueled even more side-eye online. After the dust started to settle, reports confirmed that Kim posted a photo with this one's wife, while Kris shared one with both Harry and this one's wife. According to InStyle and several other outlets, those images were quietly deleted shortly after being posted, adding another shady layer to an already messy situation. Rumors started flying everywhere about what really went down, with talk that Harry and this one's wife didn't give permission for their photos to be shared. That story spread fast, only to be followed by another claim saying there were no consent forms at the party at all, which made the whole situation even messier. With speculation spinning out of control, the truth finally came out on a recent episode of Khloe Kardashian's podcast, Khloe in Wonderland, where Kim Kardashian addressed the drama head-on and explained why the photos were taken down. Khloe brought up the so-called photogate from her mum's 70th birthday, setting Kim up to respond. Kim brushed it off as really innocent, saying it was wild how big the story became. She explained that her mum and this one's wife have been friendly for years and described their connection as really sweet, a comment that sounded like polished praise layered on thick for the audience. Kim went on, saying, "We took a photo, and then I think we were all going through them," explaining that everyone was talking about what would be posted. She stressed, "We are never ones to post without permission, it's not who we are," while Khloe jumped in to back that up, clearly showing careful image control in real time as Kim continued. Kim kept going, saying, "We have the craziest, funnest photos from that night," but explained they were only posting light, playful shots. Khloe jumped in and added dignified photos, which instantly raised eyebrows for a lot of people watching. Critics weren't exactly convinced, especially considering how awkward and sloppy Harry looked in some of the images, clearly not presenting his best self in that moment. Kim then claimed they were told it was totally fine to post the pictures. The story they're pushing is that Harry and this one's wife were asked directly if sharing the photos on Instagram was okay, and that they supposedly gave a green light with a casual, "Yeah, go ahead, it's cool to post." That's the version being sold to the public right now. And honestly, that part actually tracks for a lot of observers. This one's wife has always seemed eager to broadcast her presence at high-profile, celebrity-packed events, being seen alongside the Jenner Kardashian circle
circle boosts status, headlines, and attention, and she knows it. So the idea that she would suddenly block photos from going online just doesn't add up to many people watching closely. From that angle, it makes far more sense that she would want the world to know she was there, front and center, rubbing shoulders with Hollywood royalty and soaking up the spotlight. Some critics joke that she was probably celebrating behind the scenes, thrilled that those photos made it onto such massive platforms. In their minds, she was hyped, proud, and loving every second of the attention, especially knowing how carefully she curates her image and chases high-profile visibility. Then comes the explanation being floated around. After the photos were posted, they supposedly realized it was Remembrance Day and didn't want to be seen partying, even though the images were live. After that, the photos were quietly deleted, and suddenly everyone was acting like the whole thing was just a silly oversight. But a lot of people aren't buying that story at all. The idea that they somehow forgot what day it was doesn't sit right with critics, especially considering Harry was reportedly wearing a poppy on his lapel when he arrived, a clear symbol tied to Remembrance Day. Remembrance Day, observed every year on November 11th, is one of the most solemn days recognized by the British royal family, honoring service members who lost their lives in duty. Chloe also mentioned that Harry and this one's wife had attended the baby-to-baby gala that same evening before heading over to the Jenner birthday party, making the timeline even more questionable in the eyes of many observers.
The gala itself is an annual charity fundraiser supporting mothers and children living in poverty, and Serena Williams was honored at last year's event. Kim pointed out that attending the gala was fine, but suggested that partying and dancing afterward might not have been the best look, especially given the timing. That's the line she tried to draw to calm the backlash. Kim went on saying they removed the photos out of respect for Remembrance Day, then laughed it off, saying sometimes you just have to joke about situations when people take things the wrong way. She kept saying "like" over and over, leaning into that casual tone, and even joked about turning the whole mess into a Skims campaign stunt. Her idea was to post a photo, deleted 30 minutes later, then claim there was no permission, just to mess with the narrative. Chloe laughed and encouraged it, while Kim said it would have landed way better if they had kept it light and funny. She admitted she hated how the situation blew up and said it turned into something way crazier than it ever needed to be. In her view, the reaction spiraled out of control for no good reason. Reading between the lines, it sounds like Kim was subtly tossing criticism toward the Sussexes, hinting that the whole drama was overblown. But here's where critics push back hard. This wasn't just any random day. It was Remembrance Sunday, and that context matters deeply, especially given Harry's long history of emphasizing how important that day is to him. Harry has spent years reminding the public that he served 2 tours in Afghanistan and had a decade-long military career. And this one's wife has clearly leaned into that history too, often borrowing credibility from his service when it suits a narrative. She even did it recently, slipping his military background into a political jab, showing just how often that card gets played. So let's be real here. Both of them understand exactly what Remembrance Sunday represents. It's about honoring service, sacrifice, and those who lost their lives in uniform. That's not subtle, and it's not confusing. Which is why critics say they absolutely knew what day it was and still decided it was fine to show up at a flashy party anyway. Harry even arrived wearing a poppy, a clear symbol tied directly to Remembrance Sunday. To many observers, that made the whole situation worse, not better. Wearing that symbol while attending a celebrity birthday bash, posing for photos, and appearing careless rubbed a lot of people the wrong way fast. They also clearly seemed fine being photographed and didn't object when those images hit Instagram. Everything looked all good until the backlash exploded across social media and mainstream outlets alike. That's when the tone suddenly shifted and the excuses started rolling in. People online were quick to point out the contrast. While many were spending the day remembering fallen service members, here was a former soldier and public figure out partying in full view of the cameras.
Critics argued he should have skipped the event, kept a low profile, or at the very least avoided public attention altogether. Instead, the situation turned into a storm of criticism, with many saying the outrage wasn't random at all, but a direct reaction to choices that felt tone-deaf, poorly timed, and completely avoidable. Critics went absolutely in on the pair, throwing around harsh nicknames and branding them as completely out of touch. In that telling, they thought it was no big deal to attend the party, pose for photos, and give the green light for everything to hit Instagram. Then suddenly, once the backlash hit hard, the story flipped to, "Oh wait, it's Remembrance Sunday, better take those down." That excuse didn't land with the public at all. Kim Kardashian, whether she meant it or not, ended up pushing them straight under the bus. Very few people believe they somehow forgot what day it was, especially given everything surrounding Harry's background. If they truly felt conflicted, critics argued there were obvious options. Don't pose for photos, ask for them not to be posted, or better yet, don't go to the party in the first place. Instead, the optics screamed something else entirely. Observers say this one's wife seemed far more focused on being seen with the Kardashian-Jenner circle than on the meaning of the day itself. From that angle, Remembrance Sunday became less about reflection and more about image management once things went south. The loudest criticism centers on priorities. To many watching, the moment looked like chasing status and spotlight first, then scrambling for damage control after public opinion turned ugly. Being photographed with Kim and Kris clearly mattered in that moment, and the excitement of that visibility outweighed any concern about timing. That's why critics say the outrage didn't come out of nowhere. It was sparked by choices that felt self-centered, poorly judged, and painfully disconnected from what Remembrance Sunday represents to so many people. The bigger picture here is how fast the damage control kicked in once the noise got loud. When the comments turned sour and headlines started stacking, the mood clearly shifted from celebration to scramble. That switch alone is what set people off because it looked reactive, not respectful. Public figures live and die by optics, and this situation was a masterclass in how optics can blow up overnight. One minute it's smiles, selfies, and high-status connections. The next minute it's explanations, deletions, and finger-pointing. That kind of whiplash makes people question motives, especially when the timing is already sensitive. What really fueled the backlash was the sense that the meaning of the day only mattered once the criticism rolled in. If Remembrance Sunday truly came first, the choices would have looked very different from the start. That's the disconnect people couldn't ignore.
Instead of accountability, what followed felt like spin, wrapped in jokes and casual podcast chatter. To a lot of observers, that came off as brushing off something that carries real emotional weight for many families and veterans. At the end of the day, this wasn't about one party or one photo. It was about judgment, priorities, and how quickly respect seemed to fall behind reputation management when the spotlight got uncomfortable. What really sealed the reaction was how familiar this pattern felt to critics watching from the sidelines. Big moment, big exposure, then instant retreat once the applause turns into criticism. That cycle has played out before, and people are catching on fast. There's also the issue of mixed messaging. On one hand, military service and remembrance are often highlighted when it boosts credibility or public standing. On the other hand, when that same symbolism clashes with celebrity culture and party optics, it suddenly becomes awkward and inconvenient. That contrast is what rubbed so many the wrong way. Social media doesn't forget, and screenshots move quicker than explanations. Once the images were out there, deleting them didn't erase the impression they left. For a lot of viewers, the takeaway wasn't about intent, it was about judgment and timing. Critics argue that leadership and respect show up in quiet choices, not last-minute reversals. Staying home, keeping things private, or avoiding cameras altogether would have sent a very different message. Instead, the public saw hesitation only after the backlash hit. That's why this moment stuck. It wasn't loud because people wanted drama. It was loud because it highlighted a gap between words and actions. And once that gap is visible, it's hard to ignore, no matter how fast the cleanup effort rolls out. What makes this whole episode linger is the way it exposed priorities in real time. When the spotlight was glowing, everything seemed fine, smooth, and approved. Smiles were on, poses were set, and the vibe was clearly about being seen in the right rooms with the right people. But the second the mood online flipped, the energy changed fast. Suddenly, it was about explanations, context, and softening the story. That kind of pivot doesn't feel accidental to critics. It feels calculated after the fact, and once people sense that, trust starts slipping. This wasn't some private moment that accidentally leaked. It was public-facing, celebrity-level exposure, and everyone involved knows how that game works. Cameras don't appear by surprise at events like this, and Instagram posts don't delete themselves. For a lot of viewers, the frustration came from how easily something meaningful was brushed aside once it became inconvenient. Remembrance isn't a trend, a vibe, or a PR obstacle. It's a day with deep emotional weight, and people expect public figures to treat it that way from the jump. That's why the reactions stayed heated. Not because of jealousy, not because of gossip, but because it looked like awareness kicked in only when criticism did. And once that impression sticks, no amount of backtracking really clears it up. What really keeps this story alive is how avoidable the entire situation looked from the outside. There were so many moments where a different choice could have stopped the backlash before it even started. That's why critics keep circling back to judgment, not coincidence. Public figures know that symbolism matters, especially on days loaded with meaning. When actions don't line up with the message someone usually promotes, people notice fast. And once that mismatch is visible, it sparks questions that don't go away easily. To many observers, the frustration wasn't about celebrity culture or party politics. It was about respect and consistency. You can't lean on serious causes when they boost your image, then treat them casually when they clash with a glamorous night out. That double standard is what set people off. The quick deletion of photos only poured more attention on the situation. Instead of closing the chapter, it made everything louder and messier. Online, silence and removal often read as regret, not reflection. At this point, the controversy has grown bigger than the event itself. It's become another example critics point to when talking about mixed signals, messy optics, and reaction-first decision-making. Whether fair or not, that's the reputation problem this moment added to. And once moments like this stack up, they start telling a story all on their own. What stands out now is how this moment became a symbol rather than just another headline. People stopped focusing on the party itself and started talking about patterns, habits, and repeat behavior. When situations like this keep popping up, critics say it stops looking accidental and starts looking intentional. There's also the issue of accountability, or lack of it. Instead of a clear acknowledgement that the timing was off, the response leaned towards jokes, deflection, and minimizing the reaction. That approach didn't calm things down, it only made the frustration louder. For many watching, the silence on the deeper meaning spoke volumes. No strong message of respect, no pause to reflect publicly, just a quick pivot back to image control. That gap left people feeling dismissed, especially those who take the day seriously. This is where perception really locks in. Once the public decides someone is more focused on status than substance, every move after that gets filtered through suspicion. Even harmless actions start getting side-eyed.
And that's the long-term issue here. One night, one party, one set of photos can snowball into something much bigger when it reinforces an existing narrative. Critics now point to this moment as another example of misplaced priorities and sloppy judgment. At the end of it all, the lesson feels obvious to observers. When symbolism matters, timing matters even more. Ignore that, and the backlash writes itself.
By this point, the conversation had fully shifted from what happened to what it represents. The party became background noise, while the choices around it took center stage. That's when critics stopped asking why and started saying, of course, because to them, it fit the pattern too neatly. What bothered people most was the feeling that respect was treated like a switch you turn on only when it's convenient. When it adds polish to the image, it's front and center. When it clashes with a glamorous moment, it suddenly becomes flexible. That contradiction didn't go unnoticed. Instead of owning the misstep outright, everything felt carefully massaged and smoothed over. Soft language, casual laughs, and playful jokes replaced what many expected to be a more grounded response. And for a lot of observers, that came off as tone-deaf. This is where trust takes another hit. When reactions feel rehearsed instead of sincere, people disengage fast. They stop listening to explanations and start judging actions alone. At the same time, the internet locked the moment in place. Screenshots, clips, and quotes keep circulating long after the original posts disappeared. Once something hits that stage, there's no rewinding it. So now this incident lives on as another example critics point to when questioning priorities. Not because people want outrage, but because the signal sent felt careless. And when public figures send careless signals on meaningful days, the fallout is almost guaranteed. At this stage, critics say the real issue isn't confusion, timing, or even social media mistakes. It's consistency. When public figures constantly talk about values, respect, and causes, people expect those things to show up in real-world decisions too. And when they don't, the gap becomes impossible to ignore. What annoyed observers most was the sense that respect only appeared after the backlash hit full force. That delay made everything feel reactive instead of thoughtful. Respect in the public eye is supposed to be built in advance, not patched together after headlines start rolling. There's also the fatigue factor. People are tired of explanations that sound polished but hollow. Once audiences feel like they're being managed instead of addressed honestly, patience runs out fast. This moment added to a growing perception that image comes first and reflection comes second. Whether that perception is fair or not, it's now part of the conversation, and that's not easy to shake. Every appearance after this gets filtered through that lens. Every public move invites more scrutiny, more side-eye, and more skepticism. That's how reputations shift, not overnight, but through moments exactly like this. And that's why this chapter won't fade quietly. It didn't just spark criticism, it reinforced doubts. When actions don't match the message, people remember. And once they remember, they don't easily forget. So here's the bottom line for critics watching this unfold. Turning up to a party on Remembrance Day and then trying to sell the idea that the photos were removed out of sudden respect just doesn't wash. The backlash didn't come from confusion, it came from public reaction, plain and simple. And instead of owning that, the story was spun, softened, and pushed out as something noble, which only made it worse. If the decision had truly been about respect, the actions would have come first, not the excuses afterwards. That's what people can't get past. The photos didn't disappear because of reflection, they disappeared because the criticism hit hard and fast. At the very least, honesty would have landed better than this carefully packaged explanation. Kim Kardashian, intentionally or not, ended up exposing the cracks by speaking so openly. Her comments made it clear that this wasn't some sudden realization, but a reaction to how badly the moment was received. That's what sealed it for a lot of viewers. To critics, the meaning of Remembrance Day was never really acknowledged here, and that's the heart of the anger. Harry once understood that meaning, and people feel that connection has been lost along the way. That's where we'll leave it. If you found this breakdown interesting, make sure to like, subscribe, share, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for listening.